Mill Media, providing equitable access to STEAM-based experiential learning. Thanks everybody for coming to the Mid-Valley STEM-CTE Hub's Mill on this really lovely day outside, and you're willing to spend some extra time inside. I appreciate that. I'm Forrest, and I'm the Makerspace and Lending Librarian here in the Mill space. So my job is to facilitate the community getting access to really cool equipment, STEM and STEAM tools and resources and community. And one of the things that we really value as the Mid-Valley STEM-CTE Hub is representation and making sure people can see the things that they want to be. This series, I think, is really important to us, making sure that women and gender minorities are able to see the amazing people who are doing the work that that they want to do in their lives. So, and makerspaces can tend to be, a little bit, feels a lot of times like they're dominated by white guys, and we're trying to not be that and not and be really intentional about, we want this to be a space for everyone, not just here on campus, but community-wide. And so we're really pleased to have folks from OSU, from here at LBCC, and from the community. And Ramycia is our lovely presenter, and I'm going to hand it over to her.
So, good early evening. That's where we are. It's 5 o'clock. 5:15-ish, something like that. And we are joined by these lovely women here that are going to share their stories. We have some prepared questions for them that they will answer, and then we have some questions from the audience. And then after that, after they've said their piece, and then we'll have Sarah come up and sort of close us out and tell us what's next for the STEM Hub. So first of all, thank you so much for being here. This kind of brings me back to my roots. I went to school for journalism, so it's giving very much that. I feel I've not interviewed someone in a long time. I'm used to being on the other side. But actually, this feels really good and comfortable. So lets you know I haven't lost my touch. So thank you, Jennifer, Ami, and Carol for being here. As he said, we have folks from OSU, Action, and Ani here at LBCC, and then someone from industry in our community. So this is going to be a great night and a good talk. So I want to first start off with Jennifer. You ready, Jennifer?
Ready.
Okay, all right. Jennifer, what exactly is ocean, earth, and atmospheric science? I've heard of ocean and earth, but the other piece, not so much. Can you tell us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So generally, those are considered geosciences. So I'm a oceanographer. So it's kind of people who study the earth, who study our atmosphere, so maybe weather. There's even people, I know professors who study rainbows, which is right. You study rainbows, that's so cool. And then people like me who study the ocean, and specifically for the ocean, kind of studying, the biology in the ocean, so what's living there, and then the chemistry in the ocean, so ocean acidification is a really big thing right now, and then also the physics of the ocean, so how do waves move, and different beach waves versus big open oceans, and so yeah, it's kind of studying all the different encompasses of our planet in that way.
Wow, that's a lot. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thanks.
I saw a rainbow the other day outside of my house. It was actually a double rainbow. To know someone studies that, I want to know that person.
Yes.
I don't want to study it, but I want to know how it happened.
Yeah.
We just talk about the oceanification in chemistry class as well, 122.
Yeah, see, look at that. Yeah. All right. And then what advice would you give to other Pacific Islander young women who want to go into this particular field of study?
Yeah, so just a little background. So I'm originally from Hawaii, and my dad's from Samoa, and my mom is Hawaiian mixed Islander, mixed Asian. And so for me, right, you don't see a lot of students who look like me in STEM in general or in science. And so I think, and this is probably valuable for everyone, is to find a community. So you're a people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in science, which I did. I have friends outside of STEM, then also kind of faculty or staff who I find are super supportive. And I think that's really, the biggest piece of advice that I found really helpful.
And then how do you find that? Because, I mean, if you're talking about finding your your community, finding your people, finding your tribe. That can be really challenging for, you know, people of color in a space like Albany or a space like Oregon. So how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so luckily I found those people by different like classes or projects I had to take.
Okay.
So when I first entered graduate school, we had to do like a week of camping together, and within like the 30 people, I was like, I found my 5. Like, those are my 5. I can't let you go now. And then, you know, with faculty, you kind of just have like hallway discussions. Like maybe an undergraduate, you get to know your professors a bit more, and you're like, oh, okay, this one I'm gonna keep also in my pocket here for later. So kind of those opportunities.
And relationships, obviously. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. We might circle back to that question for all of us in a second. I want to go right here to our very own Ami, who is our chemistry teacher here at LBCC. And so you stated in your bio that you did a short-term research internship at the University of South Wales in Australia prior to coming here to the U.S. Can you please give us some insight on your experience doing that? That sounds like just super dope. Like, we want to know. I want to know.
Yeah, so I think it's really awesome too, because so give you a little bit background of that. So it has been my dream ever to live like outside of my country, and but unfortunately my parents are not rich, so they can't afford my college degree or even like go study abroad, right? So I have to like work really hard to get into like the free program like in my college throughout like my whole like bachelor degree or whatever, and then I have to search and go beyond, like way like above and beyond, to find a scholarship that allow me to study outside like the country, because that's the only way that I can be outside the country ever. So I was like, I applied for it, and I was just like, yes, I got it. So I was so excited. It's like the first time that I would be able to like get out of that country, like to explore. And that internship really like shaped like it's just open, I guess it's, what is the English term? It's like open the, like give you out of the box. Is that the term? Yeah. So it's like that. So it's like some things that I never experienced back in Thailand was, for example, in chemistry lab, they did not do any protection at all. Like nobody wear like goggles, nobody have to wear like lab coat or whatever. But in Australia, like this is like brand new to me, that I have to wear goggles and have to, you know, like the facilities that we have like back like in Thailand versus Australia, it's just completely the opposite, right? So it's really opened my mind and is direct me into the next level of what I want to do. So like the internship is not only like help put it in your resume for your next step, but it's also actually to search who you are as well. Like do you really want to do that, right? Like if you want to really pursue that direction. So that's what that internship really like shaped my path into like continuing doing PhD and things like that, because I want to explore the world, and I want to not be trapped within just one culture. I want to explore and learn other culture as well, because it's just different. It's like I just admire like that everyone come from different background, and I can benefit from that, and I can learn from that culture, and I can apply to that and things like that. Yeah. So
do you feel like when you talked about being a difference between Thailand and Wales, do you feel like you assimilated in a way that you left some of your cultural norms back in Thailand, and that you weren't able to bring those into your internship, or do you think you were able to bring some of those cultural norms to your internship?
Yeah, so during the internship, it was brand new for me, because it was the first time ever that I was outside the country. So I had a lot of like culture shock. So before I have to like learn, like I think things that I earned like from that is the adaptability. Like I have to adapt myself. Things that is good about my culture, I will keep it. Thing that I have to change, I have to change it. So it's just like, you know, like I think the internship benefit me in that skill that I earned.
Yeah, being adaptable, that's a good word. And so with that, how did that internship sort of really inform your teaching practices and your teaching methodologies? Because you talked about your parents not having enough money to get internships or to send you to school, and that's the case for a lot of students. And so how do you think that informs how you navigate your classroom?
Yeah, so I am proud to teach at community college, because that, I think one of the mission is to, you know, like to like this is an institution that the learning can be accessible to student and affordable to student, and that's what I believe, because that's what I went through my like childhood, right? So I think just that value, I try to do my best in my class to develop something so that is reduce the burden for students, such as 2 years ago, I developed the open, like the custom-made, open resources textbook for chemistry, for my series of chemistry, to reduce that burden of textbook that students have to pay for, like, you know, like $100, $200 for just chemistry that is not even part of their program, right? It's just the back core that they have to learn, and that's, to me, is like I feel like you know, like whatever like I experienced in the past, that has become what I value in my teaching as well. Yeah, wonderful. Here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Did I answer your question?
You did, okay. Yeah. I think, and I love the fact that you said you use OERs, because we need more of that, and I think that it really does help, like you said, reduce the cost and anxiety of trying to purchase books and purchase supplies. Yeah. So that's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and also the next goal, it would be probably, for me, is like to reduce the cost of homework platform. If you're probably familiar with that, right? Because the homework platform is already like $50. I know it's not much to some student, but some student is cost them everything. It's just they have to take 3 jobs and full-time student, and it's just like, I mean, how are they going to be able to be successful in the class if they don't have time to actually study? And that just has been in my heart. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna follow up too. Okay, Carol, you have had a really long, successful career. What has been your biggest lesson you learned in industry?
Biggest lesson is to never stop learning. I think always keep an open mind. I spent, thanks to LB, shout out to LB, I have a 2-year degree from here. I started out, I wanted to be an oceanographer, but I had a class called calculus, and I went, nope. And thanks to LB, I have a degree in science lab technology, and so I spent my entire career as a lab rat. I call myself a lab rat, so working in labs. So, you know, how do you know what you're gonna do when you go in these labs? Well, you don't. You have to learn it. So I learned from the people that were working in the labs, and so that's important because you use that so you can further your career, so to speak. So I used that knowledge to improve my position, and then we also had customers, which you have customers, I'm sure your kids, you will have customers, but you have to provide lab confidence to your customers. So because of all that you never stop learning, because it steps you up here. You'll start here, you end up here, but to get to here, you have to keep learning. So
I agree. I'm a lifelong learner too, so I get that. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, that's what science is. It's always expanding. It's always about learning. So
I think that's what life is, though. It's always about expanding. It's always about learning. You got to be on the cutting edge of things, especially in the classroom, so you can keep your students informed. You hear this, right? So when you go out there and you're talking to students, you know that. Okay. You also stated in your bio that your company worked for and resulted in supporting worldwide technology development in groups in a corporation. How so? Can you give us some specifics? If it's classified, you don't
it's
have
not
to.
Classified.
Okay, great. We want the classified stuff though. Anyway, we want the exclusivity.
Yeah, I didn't sign an NDA.
Okay.
When I retired.
Give us all the dirt.
Yes, I am retired, so I'm at the opposite end from these ladies. So, basically, I work for a company that makes glass fiber for 37 years. It's in Corvallis. It's Evanite Fiber Corporation. It's also known as Hollingsworth and Vose. What is glass fiber? It's used to make battery separators or filtration. Think of in your air conditioner or your cars. In your batteries have battery separators. All your batteries for your flashlights, there's little separators in there. That comes from glass fiber, and it's made by dropping molten glass into like cotton candy. Spins it out. You can't eat it, but that's what it looks like, cotton candy. Put it in a bale, like a hay bale, send it off to our customers. Well, Corvallis is the main place where they make glass fiber. So there's plants in our main, actually corporate in Boston. And there's 2, we call them mills. There's 2 plants in, mills or plants. 2 of them in Massachusetts, 2 in England, 1 in China, believe it or not. France, I think Germany, so they're worldwide, the corporation worldwide. So in Corvallis, we had a vision to make a lab that we could bring all the plants together and test all the material in Corvallis. So we have 5 or 6 labs that each lab was individual. And so anybody in corporate, and by corporate I mean they were scientists. I worked for technology, and so technology was forever expanding, and the goal was to make the next battery separator. So stop-start cars, those things, the batteries in those are what came out of Corvallis, basically. So, so the goal is to keep inventing the next best thing. So how do you do that? Well, send your stuff to Corvallis, we'll test it, and that's what we did. So, you know, the scientist in China actually would send material to Corvallis. You know, how does this? Is this going to work good? So we would test it physically, chemistry-wise. The testing would take me a year to tell you what it entailed on some of this, but it was unique. I have to say it's a unique experience because there's only a few places that make glass fiber, in fact 2 in the U.S. So Corvallis is very unique, and it was a unique job, and so we kind of made our niche, I guess you would say, for testing from Corvallis to expand out to the corporation. So,
wow, little old Corvallis was
who knew
doing that.
Yep.
Well, now we have some questions from the audience. Hey, so I'm just kind of gonna do them in random order. I think we have about 6, 7, something like that. So, but the first one I want to propose to Jennifer. Give these other ladies a quick chance to catch their breath. Okay, what got you interested in this type of work?
Yeah, so when I first started college, I wanted to be a doctor. Like I volunteered in high school at the big hospital on the island I'm from, and I was like, oh, it seems really cool. I wanted to be like an oncologist or like work in geriatrics from experiences growing up, and I volunteered for a second time. I was like, oh, I don't think this is going to work. And so I did a summer bridge program at my community college there after my first year of college, and I met people at the main university, the research university, University of Hawaii Manoa, and they studied like ocean, earth, you know, all the people that I end up doing it now, and they were telling us, you know, like, oh, you can get a job in this, you grew up here, you know, the ocean that's like 5 minutes from where you're from, people study this and get paid. And I'm like, really? I was like, that's surprising, I didn't know that. And so I applied for the internship. You know, at this time I was working like a bunch of random jobs to pay for school, and then I applied for their internship and got the internship, and throughout my college worked with them, and then ended up going to graduate school, and it was kind of all from there. Now I'm in Oregon.
Yeah, internships are so paramount. I keep hearing. Did you do an internship?
Actually, I did here, so.
Yeah.
It was called College Work Experience, I believe. You might still have it, I don't know. But.
So, obviously, internships are very paramount in an effort to prepare for your career. So, with that being said, question for you, Ani. How is your field directly advancing society?
Wow, that's a tough question there I got, huh? So I feel like chemistry is a central science. You can't eliminate that, right? Like, I mean, you hear everybody talk about everything, and then here and there you hear the word chemistry again. So yeah, so chemistry is the foundation, it's a central, and is have a lot to do in technology we have now, everything that we know, quantum computer, right, is based on the foundation of atoms, of how atoms behave and interact with light and things like that. So it just, I don't know if I have like a good answer of like, what is a correct, like, you know, like one word to describe that. But I feel like chemistry is just everywhere.
Yeah. I think what you said in the beginning, chemistry is a central science. Like, that's important because it's in anything and it's in food, it's in technology, it's in clothing, it's in marketing, it's
your
everywhere.
Makeup, right? It's like exactly,
Okay,
or,
girl.
or like even the hair product that you use.
That's the hair product. Girl, you better give me my
Or
crosshair
even like
makeup.
a jewelry that you wear, nail polishing. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, to just like asking me like how, yeah, it's just I can just go on and on about the application of the chemistry, like in this room, like everyone, you know what I mean? Like even just if we are naked without anything, still in our body, water, right? The property of water can be explained by chemistry, exactly. So, yeah, so every property and changes can be explained by chemistry.
I love that.
Yeah. And that's
I'm gonna have to start saying that. Chemistry is essential. Essential. I like that.
Without chemistry, you wouldn't have glass fiber, you wouldn't have cars. Think about it. I mean, if you think about it, you wouldn't have a lot of things without chemistry. So.
Well, clearly, I wouldn't have my makeup, my hair,
Wouldn't have your makeup.
you know, my jewelry,
Yep.
girl. I wouldn't have none of that. So I'm keeping all that in mind. Okay. Carolyn, most inspiring moments and least part of your job or your career?
Most inspiring was to retire, believe it or not.
You should be so lucky.
So lucky. That was, the most inspiring was probably when we were able to start the labs. The least inspiring, Forrest kind of mentioned it, the white man syndrome, as he called it. Women in science, where there's not, I don't want to say discrimination, but you're kind of down here. And I know March 14th was Equal Pay Day. I think you guys know that. And it's when, you know, we were paid, we had to work till March 14th to get paid the same as a male. And so I fought a lot during my career to get up here, you know, so it's kind of a stigma, women in science. STEM is helping to, which I'm with Sarah and Forrest, and in another group I'm involved with STEM, which we're trying to get women into science. So that's probably my goal right now, but the least thing I had was to have to fight for my position.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think I used to work for a group in Chicago called Chicago Women in Trades, and I would go out and recruit young women into the trades, you know, pipe fitting, welding, brick laying, and that stuff doesn't look attractive to women, but it made a lot of money. Electricians, and it's a shorter period of time, so I think that helps. Like these sorts of conversations, these sorts of highlights really help to attract our young women into some of these things. And don't forget, you need the humanities too, though. You got to know how to write and read too, in an effort to get into these amazing careers. Okay, I'm gonna go back to you for a second. I'm gonna do it a different way.
An easier one?
I don't know if. Okay. What was your main goal in becoming a scientist? What did you start? Why did you start a science career? Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question. So to answer that, I actually was interested in art and going to art school, but I also was good at science too. So I talked to my dad, like, Dad, I want to go to art school, and he asked me, well, what are you gonna do for a living? So I was like, oh, that's hit me really hard. It's like, okay, but I love drawing, painting, right? Like, I want to go. And he said that, well, you can always become an artist once you get the chemistry degree, but you will never get a chemistry degree if you go the other direction. So I took that advice from my dad and applied for, you know, like, chemistry degree. Like, they have, so back in my country, the STEM field, any STEM majors, you can apply for a scholarship because the government do pour funding into those STEM field because we don't have a lot of like scientists back in Thailand. So they have like a full scholarship. So I was part of that full scholarship that I received. So so that's why I choose to learn science or choose science for my career. It's just because of that limit of funding from my family. Yeah, and also like I love it as well because chemistry is fascinating, and I just want to learn more and how it's like benefits society and things like that.
Do you think you can ever go back and be an artist? Because you can.
You
can do both.
Yeah, so I so now so exactly. So now I'll be offer like art class too, right? So like I was thinking maybe like after my son get a little bit older, I can take like free courses here.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's definitely my dream.
Yes. Yeah.
So
come get the art degree. I want to see the art. You know, it's chemistry and art, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay.
What else in that question? I feel like I did not answer
Oh,
all
it just
of it.
asked why did you get started? What,
yeah.
what got you started? But
Okay. Did I answer all of that already?
You did.
Okay.
It was your father that said, nah, go the other route. Which parents do kind of, they can. I remember when I told my mother I was going to be a professor, and she said, what? I took out that Parent Plus loan for you to go to school. I thought you were going to be a journalist. I thought you were going to be a news reporter. So I know that conversation. Okay. All right, I'm going to come back to you, and then Jennifer, I'm going to end with you. So do you all, or this is kind of all of you in a sense, do you all truly believe that tech can solve our problems? Why or why not?
That's another good question. It depends, I think, what do you want to solve, you know? What in technology needs to be solved? You know, is there more humanity problems, there's more technology? I mean, technology-wise, you know, they want to make better cars, they want to make electric cars. Is that solving anything by having electric cars? Think about the batteries in electric cars. You know, I'm going to go back to that because can they recycle them yet? No, they can't. A battery, I'll use this as an example, in a Ford F-150 pickup. They weigh the pickup weighs like 4,000 pounds. A battery in one of those, to make it electric, it weighs 3,000 pounds, the battery alone. So you have a 7,000 pound truck out there on the road. Does that make sense to have an electric truck that has a 3,000 pound battery in it just because it's electric? And then imagine the cost when your battery goes dead. That's the other part, a huge cost. So is that good for technology? That remains to be seen. You know, it still needs to evolve. Technology needs to evolve, put it that way, I think. It needs to evolve to make it better, to make things better, because we're not necessarily there yet. So.
Yeah. I like how you started at the beginning. It depends on what you want to solve, right? Some things are good, some things, technology does things better right away, and sometimes it doesn't, right? So I think that's important. It depends on what we want to solve in society. So
Yes.
I love that example of a F-150. That's a big battery.
I want to add to that too. So like the battery, also generates some sort of problem as well, because if you think about lithium is part of battery, and you know like where you're gonna have is lithium. And if you have like lithium plant, it's also causing environmental problem at that country. Like for example, like the South America, like Bolivia, that are generating or like exporting lithium. So we create a lot of like environmental problem back there, and those people also get impacted by that too. So it's just exactly what you said. It's just like we're just not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet. We'll get there. I think there's always pros and cons with technology and science. With anything, it's pros and cons. I think the more we grow in a more technologically based society, the more sometimes problems we'll have. And because even if you have a technology, there's a problem to follow that technology. You got to fix this issue. So I agree. It depends on what we want to solve and that. Okay, Jennifer, how is pollution affecting the acidity of the ocean? This sounds like a quiz question for you, like an exam question.
I feel like this is something I could get, for like my defense or something.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, so pollution, right? So I don't exactly study chemistry, but so I can think about things in terms of, I can think of things in terms of pollution though, right? So in the ocean, if you think of like coastal areas, so there's these things called, this process called like eutrophication, which is when you have runoff from land entering the ocean, and with runoff, right, it takes up all the, like if we have water run across the floor, there's probably other things, right, on the floor that's going to take the water with it to the ocean. And so when that enters it, all those nutrients, it's like things with like nitrogen and phosphorus, it's going to cause all of like the microscopic plants like phytoplankton and the ocean to bloom. So it's going to cause these like phytoplankton blooms or eutrophication to happen. And then that can then impact, all the different animals there, right? So if I think of somewhere tropical, like where I'm from, so there's coral reefs. The corals need sun to make their food. But then if we have these blooms, the sun can't get to the coral through the water, right? And so they're going to starve or suffocate. And then other, fish will also, because there's so much like phytoplankton there, they'll be impacted. So there's those types of issues, where I think of like biology, and that's also chemistry, right? All those nutrients coming in there, so different chemicals, and then in terms of ocean acidification. So off of Oregon here, there's actually people at Oregon State who work on this issue of like ocean acidification, or the different oyster hatcheries, how they're impacted, right? So yeah, everyone knows like the Whiskey Creek, I think it's the big one, and so there's people over there. They work to try and make it so the oyster larvae there can actually like build their shells. So that's, you know, a issue close to home for everyone here, where you can see that happening. That's one of the big ones.
So that question was on my exam, last exam.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, so I asked students like, what is the chemical responsible for ocean acidification? And the answer is carbon dioxide. Believe it or not, the gas that we breathe out. Yeah, so exactly. So if the way that it affects sea life, like shellfish, is just because that when the ocean become more acidic or pH like lowering, because of when the carbon dioxide is producing by like fossil fuel, right? It will dissolve to the ocean because it can dissolve in water. Like if you open this water, like there will be CO2 dissolved in that. Okay, so there will be like a small amount. But when we produce a lot, it will force that to dissolve in water, causing the pH of water to lower or become more acidic. And acidic water will have tendency to dissolve the shell. So that's why we have the problem with oyster and also crab or any shellfish or like coral reef and things like that. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So fossil fuel. So that's the answer. Like that produce carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide is the main compound that's causing it.
And is that why we want more electric cars to stop producing this carbon dioxide and these fossil
Correct.
fuels?
Yep.
Exactly.
So that's why they try to have the limit of like carbon emission. Yep. So because of that, yeah. And not only that, carbon dioxide also is a greenhouse gas that causing the climate change, right? Because it's trapped in the upper atmosphere and behaves as glass. So when the heat entering, it's good with a small amount because keep the earth warm, right? So that's why we still like live here, not like in like other planet that don't have this type of gases. So when it's entering, so if we have too much, it's trapped in there, so the heat can't exit. So that's why we have a warmer, like the climate would change.
Yeah, so that's kind of why it's like you have, so with climate change or like CO2, right, entering our atmosphere like in excessive amounts, you have things like ocean acidification with chemistry, but then you also have like warming oceans. Just like if, like say waters, right, so if you think of like the world as the equator, you know, and then we have the poles on opposite ends, warmer water is kind of supposedly like centered at the equator. But then as with like climate change, you see waters extending toward the poles. So that's gonna impact, like when I think biology, fish, or different like animals that need certain like temperatures to survive are going to move. Say like they need colder waters, but then it's like, oh, it's too warm over here, I gotta move up. Then that can impact, say, like fishery species, right? If the people who go and fish go out and they're like, where's the fish at? I was trying to fish and this is where I've been doing it for years, and it's like, I think we gotta go more north or more, you know, south. It's kind of
I was hearing that about the crabs. I don't know if it was in Newport, but they were like looking for them because it wasn't a good season.
That's the Alaska.
Alaska, that's what I was hearing. Okay, we're gonna wrap up. We'll have just in time Sarah come up and give us some closing remarks. Who's the face of the STEM up here?
So thank you so much. I just wanted to introduce myself, Sarah Whiteside, Director of the Mid-Valley STEM-CTE Hub, and I wanted to express some gratitude, first of all, to our fabulous facilitator, my dear friend, Dr. McGhee, to our wonderful panelists, to my team, Casey, Forrest, Austin, thank you so much, and to you all for coming. I know some folks had to go. There's a concert happening tonight, but for choosing to spend your time with us this evening, and we're just so grateful to be engaged in this work to elevate and enhance STEM, STEAM, and career technical education for greater diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have really complex problems to solve, and we need all of these perspectives to confront the challenges that you all have been talking about. So our next event in this Women in STEAM series is May 25th, and the topic will be Women in Making. So be sure to mark your calendars. We hope that you can join us. And so with that, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much.
Hey, this is Forrest. If you enjoyed this Mill Media show, be sure to check out our podcast about women and gender minorities who work in STEM and the skilled trades called Closing the Gap. You can find a link to Closing the Gap in the show's description. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe to the Mill Media podcast so you never miss an episode. This has been a production of the Mid-Valley STEM-CTE Hub. Find us on the web at www.midvalleystem.org/mill.